going to spend the next 30 minutes talking about one part of the roadmap. So before I start, I want to give a quick setting the stage of what you're seeing today. And there's also another part tomorrow. So today, I'm going to cover specifically Connections 8. There will be another session tomorrow where Adam and I will talk about what's coming after V8, right? So just setting the expectation right, even though it says roadmap here, this is not the presentation that gives you the longer vision. This is specifically for V8. So hold on, there we go. The little disclaimer here, and of course, I'll be presenting. I'm joined here by Adam, and we'll walk through the V8 specific update on where we are and what's coming in V8. So without any further ado, let's take a look at how V8 slots into our roadmap up to this point. So started early here. I'm not going to go into too much detail because you all remember what we did with 6.5. We focused on adoption and engagement with adding touch point, the sidebar, highlights, etc. And then with V7, which we introduced in all the languages in January of this year, we focused on integration and repeatable success, working on specifically communities with a tailored experience, introducing templates, introducing the wizard, improving on the highlights page, but of course also integrating in and out with, for example, Teams and SharePoint and whatnot. So those were the two most recent releases. Now we look at 8. I'm going to spend the rest of the presentation on walking through the different areas that you see here, where we focus on navigation, search, consistency, and share. And I'm actually going to give you a sneak preview on a development server on how we turned the sketch designs into actual live running code. But we'll get to that in a moment. So let's talk about the main areas of Connections 8, the ones that we're working on, the themes for this release. So what we're doing with V8 is mostly around the user experience, because that is one thing that we've consistently heard over the years, and that's also represented strongly in the aha ideas that have been submitted by you. It's the consistency around the user experience, making the experience around search easier, and of course, with any ESN, the sharing, creating viral moments where you can easily share content with others, make it so that people find it, are at the core of what makes Connections so successful, right? And that is our focus for V8. So the redesigned user experience has a lot to do with the navigation. We're reimagining the navigation, how you can switch from one area to the other quickly and easily. And then at the center of it is always the search, right? Because yes, OrientMe and the activity stream feed things to you that Connection things is relevant to you, but sometimes you just want to search for something, and there were a lot of steps in the search process that we knew were a little bit too complicated. Something just happened. I don't know if you can see my screen yet, because the green bar disappeared. So if somebody could tell me if I'm still, oh, there it's back. Okay.
Yep, it's still sharing.
Okay.
It's there.
Right. So like I said, on the search, the flow from starting the search to finding was a little bit, had room for improvement, shall we say. So I'm going to show you how we're addressing that. And then the increased information velocity, again, talks to that moment where, I love the discussion earlier on, right? The great debate around the water cooler, the coffee machine, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Yeah, but the reality is information velocity is all dependent on how easily you can share it. If you share something by standing next to the coffee machine and just mention something in passing, is the equivalent to being in Connections and being able to share something really quick and easy with somebody in Connections or maybe even outside of Connections, because that's where those people work, right? So I'm going to show you how we can do that. So those are the three main themes that we have in the back of our heads when we designed the experience for Connections 8. Hold on, why is it not advancing? There we go. So let's start with the navigation. What you see on the screen here is a sketch mockup. I keep saying the word sketch, which is probably a tool you've never heard of, but sketch is a tool that allows you to easily design software interfaces, right? So that's what we use. So what you see on this screen here is not real actual running code, it's a mockup, right? So this is how we started. Our design team worked hard to create the mockups, and those now guide the development who actually takes these mockups and turns those into real user interfaces based on connections. And that is the work in progress right now. That's what the teams are working on, and I'm happy to show you some of that already running on actual connections. But what are we doing here? So as you see, we're in a community, but the community is surrounded by two navigation elements mostly. It's the bar on the top, the horizontal blue bar with the logo, and it says HCL Connections. Those two elements are customizable, right? You can change the logo to make it your own company logo. And of course, you can change it from HCL Connections to your company Connect, whatever you want to call the environment, because that's what your end users will know it by. They will not necessarily know it by the name of HCL Connections. You'll be able to change the colors, of course. And in that top nav bar is also the centrally placed search bar. And this will be there no matter where you are in Connections. We'll talk about search, I think, on the next slide or so. But this is the new central location for everything related to search. Then on the left, you have the main menu. We call this the first level navigation, where you have access to all the main components of Connections, right? So you can always go to home, which would be your home page. You can always switch to communities. You can always switch to people. And this is something that we changed slightly. It was called profiles before, but now it's people, because this is where you get to your contacts, your network, and the directory. When you want to go to your own profile, look at the bottom, you see your own profile link. That's where you can easily switch to your own profile if you want to make an update or just look at your wall. Files, and then below that is the overflow menu, where you will find other applications like direct link to wikis, blogs, and whatnot. And of course, this can be configured if you want to add something else to your third-party application. The notifications will be the slide out where you see all your notifications. And then, of course, there's the help. So one more step before we look at the actual implementation so far. We also, of course, have to take care of the second and third level navigation. The second level navigation is the one that once you click on an app like Files, you'll then see, files and folders, community files, public files. If you're on the home page, you want to see top updates, recent updates, discover, and so forth, right? So that's the second level navigation. And the third level navigation is then the one within this app that drills down even further. In the case of Files, you will have, files, folders, My Drive. In case of the wiki, you will have the page navigation of the wiki, etc. So that's how we split it up. This is going to be consistent across all the apps within Connections. Okay, so here we are. I did record this yesterday, right? So this is a development server. I'm not foolish enough to do that live on an environment as volatile as a development environment. But this is yesterday. This is almost unedited recording of what it's looking like. So you'll see, it's not polished. I'll have to say that. This is not an environment where we spend time on making it look the prettiest as it can. This is more to have the latest code, to test it, and kick the tires. And that's what you're going to be seeing. So here we are on the new login screen, where I log in as jjones1. You'll see all the users are Joe Jones 1 through 500 or something. And as I log in, the first thing I'll see is the home page. And up there, you already see the blue nav bar, the nav bar on the left, and the second level navigation on the homepage, where we have top updates, latest updates. In the upper left-hand corner, where I just pointed the mouse, you don't see a logo and a name, but this is where your customized logo and environment name would go. And here on the left, we have the quick links to all the different applications, and here's the overflow menu, right? So this here, again, you can add applications as you need to. And here in this environment, we also added links to mail and calendar. The slide out for notifications does not work yet on this environment, so I won't be able to show that. But if you click on notifications, it slides out and you see all the updates that are happening in your network of people. And then you notice this light green bar. So this is the announcement banner that an admin can set to put announcements up there, right? This will stay there throughout the pages as we click. Mostly not on all pages yet, but it will. Now you see that I just clicked on communities, and here you see the second level navigation. This is the community catalog, where of course I can switch the view from my communities to discover, invited, and so forth. If I switch to people, you have the second navigation on top. And here on the page, you see what I mentioned, right? It's not polished. There were some errors and important to me. But here you navigate between the different pages. Really easy, right? There's a second navigation on top, my profile, my network. It's still on the page, so that's work in progress that we have to remove it. But like I said, live development environment. But this gives you a sense of what the navigation will look like and work like, right? So here we can switch between the different flavors of the profile section and go back to the home page. All right, so that was the navigation, what it looks like right now. Now let's talk about the search. Again, in the mock-up here, I'm going to highlight a few things to look for, a few of the changes that we are introducing. And like I mentioned before, we have the main search field always in the same spot, top center, right? That's where you start. And here on the results page, you'll see a couple of welcome changes, which addresses what I mentioned earlier, where the process of starting to finding was always sometimes a little bit clunky. So you'll see these pills there, as we call them, where it says all content, communities, people, etc. Those are filters that allow you to filter down the search result. You can say, hey, I know it's a community that I want to search for. You just click on the communities pill. If you're not sure if it was a community or was a file, you click the community and the files pill, and then the search result will be filtered down to show only communities and files. You see different sort by and how many hits per page options, the tag cloud, of course, and you also have the slider for people. So those are not new. What's new is how we arranged it on the page to make it easier. Because if you recall how it's right now, you have this very texty section on the left with all these options, and they're just hard to digest and follow. This should make it much easier. Okay. Another area that we are working on is what happens if you interact with the search field. On click, so if I just click into the search field, it will automatically show you recent searches that you have performed, as well as recently visited areas within Connections. It might be a wiki, it might be a community, it might be a blog, right? They are already showing up before you even start typing, because very often we just want to go back to where we were before, right? You just do that by clicking in the field. This comes up and presents it to you. Now, if you start typing, there's another new logic that we're introducing, which sets a scope. So here you see ABCD, and it says in all content or in files. But we take that even further. If you are in a community, in a wiki, what we'll show here is ABCD in this wiki, ABCD in this community, ABCD in everything, right? So you can narrow the scope or widen it by simply clicking on these. And this will be context sensitive. It will know that you're in files. That's why it's showing in files. It knows that you're in a community, so it knows to suggest searching in this community. And then, of course, it also gives quick results, which is our way to present a quick link to particular communities or particular people that the system thinks are relevant to you. Okay, I think with this, we'll actually start the demo. So here I'm back on this environment. And at first, I will show you what happens if you click. So you just click in the field, and now you see what we've done so far is showing you the recently visited community, wiki, blog. We don't have the recently executed searches yet, that'll come later. But now as I start typing, it shows you that scope, right? Files, people, community, content, and suggesting some people from the quick results. Okay, so now let's switch to a different page and actually execute a search. So here we search for BVT, and it already asks you, where do you want to search? Do you want to search in communities, in people? And as I do that, it will now show the result page. It's not finding anything because that's not wired up yet, right? Focus on the pills. That's what I'm showing right now. You see all contents, and now I click on different pills because I'm setting the filter of what to show. And as you saw, I can select multiple and unselect them, and this will then filter the list, and there's the people slider and so forth. Again, that's not wired up yet, so I can't show it on live results yet, but that's what it will look like. Okay, let's go into a community. So here we are in the development community, and I want to show you that scope setting right now. See, there it is, BVT in this community or in all content. If I were to go further down, say this wiki, it will show this wiki, this community, all content. And now if I start the search, you show the community pill was selected, and that's how we execute that filter. We pass it to the result page, and with that, you can determine the scope of the actual search. One last thing I want to mention on this page here is another thing that I think will have a huge impact on how people use the search and will start really feeling confident with it. In the upper right-hand corner, you see the little X. So what we're doing here is actually showing the search results page as a quote-unquote overlay. What does that mean? Imagine you're somewhere in Connections, and now you start a search. It executes the search, but and it shows you the results page here. But now you don't have to click the back button to where you were before, right? Because that sometimes doesn't really work that well. And maybe you click on links here, you go further and further away. And at some point you want to say, oh, I just want to go back to that forum that I was in, right? That's usually hard. That's what we're changing. The X here is actually going to close this overlay, and the page that you were on never disappeared. It's behind this page. So you go straight back. And if you click on a search result here, right, the one that you can't see right now, but if you were to click on a search result, it will actually open that up in a new tab or browser window. Again, you can just close it there. You don't have to use the back button to try to get back to where you were before. That was always one of the big things that makes search a little inconvenient if you have to switch or try to use the back button to get back to where you were before. Okay. With that, let's talk about the sharing capability. The idea here is different from the share as you would probably think of it when sharing a file, right? When you share a file in Connections or you share a community, effectively that means you're adding that person to the access control list. That is not what we're talking about here. Here we're talking about quick, fast sharing of a link to whatever you're looking at right now. So right now we're looking at jjones74, and that little icon up there behind the red circle is the share button. And you'll see you can share that on Connections. We'll wire it up so it works on same time. We already have it in 7 for Teams. So as you click it, it will take the link to the page and post it out to that chat or to a Connections user or community. It will not add the person to the access control list, so it's safe in that way. But the idea is it makes it more ubiquitous, easier to use. You don't have to think about it as much. It's just quick share, and it goes off to whatever target you set. The way you do this, we'll see in the software. I don't talk about too much here. One thing that I will not be able to show just yet is the way you can upload a file no matter where you are. So you have a file, you want to share it, but it's not in Connections yet. So you just hit the upload file button, it uploads it, and then you can share it at the same point in time. Previously, you actually had to go into files, to My Files, then upload it, then share it. So way too many steps. Right now, if somebody's on the phone says, I need this, report, you can just upload it, share it, done. Super quick. So let's take a look. We're back in the environment here in community, and there's a blog that I think somebody should actually take a look at. So I can go up, the button's up there right now, but before we do that, in the old way, what I would have done is maybe add a comment and mention a person to get that person's attention and have Joe know that there is this blog, right? So I leave a comment, I put an mention in. Fine, works well, but now everybody sees that I put a comment in there. So works in some cases, maybe not in others. So now I can just click the share button. Don't worry about the location, that will be different. I can select from people or communities that I've previously shared things with, or I can just start typing. So I'll choose to share this with Joe Jones too. And you see that the link and the title of the blog is down there. But now check this out. I can also mention communities, and that is really exciting because now I can easily just send out a notification to an entire community or two, right? I keep adding here communities or people and then send it off. And now these people or communities will get an update on their wall, a notification that something was shared with them. And then you will receive a link. You can click on it and end up on this blog and read it. So let's take a look at another scenario. So we were on this particular page. Now I want to go to somebody's profile. So there's Joe Jones 2 again, the person who we just shared this blog with. So you see where finally here has been shared. But now I want to notify this community that Joe is the new member of the community. So really easy. I went to his profile, selected the target community that I want to share this with, and now everybody in this community will see an update that Joe Jones is also now a member of the community. As easy as that. And this, I think, will really accelerate how sticky Connections gets because it's so much easier to create these moments where you just quickly share something without much fuss. Okay, moving on to the next topic, which is the important to me bar from OrientMe, right? So we've had it there since 6, but it was always only on important to me and on OrientMe. So what we're doing now is taking the important to me bar, position it on the right in a vertical orientation, and put it on every page, put it everywhere in Connections. You can hide it if you want the real estate, but it's always there. So you can always, go to contact the people that you pinned or people that were suggested by opening their profile card, going to that person's files or forum posts they made, or start a chat or send an email, right? You can always quickly go to a community, and Connections recommends communities and people to you. Those are the ones below that thin gray line. But of course, you can also pin people or communities. Those are the ones that are above that little gray line there. And what happens is you hover over content, and then the profile card with it will come up, and you see those 3 little circles on the image. One's a filter, one's a start chat, one's send an email. And if you click on that person, in certain areas, this will be context sensitive. So if you, for example, look at the home page, it will then filter the updates by that person. If you're in files, it will show that person's files, etc. Right, so let's take a look at where we are with implementing this. So we are back on the environment here, and I see the home page, and over to the right is the important to me bar. You see, I pinned quite a few people and communities already. And again, development environment, so the icons aren't fully, built out yet. Excuse that. But I can also add, of course, new people and communities here. So I just click the plus sign, and there's the community I want to add, return to office. It's now in the pinned section of my important to me bar. Okay, so as I hover over a person, here's Joe Jones 2 again, the profile card comes up. And as I click on Joe Jones, it now filters the update. You see there's the filter, and Joe Jones 2 is now selected, and I only see updates that are related to Joe Jones 2, right? So that's easy. Of course, I can also slide over to the profile card. The 3 dots is not wired up yet, but that's where I could see all the apps. But here's the chat. And you can tie this chat to whatever, to the chat you prefer. So it could be same time. Here it's Teams, which Joe Jones isn't here in this live environment. That's why the chat didn't come up. But that's how you get there. We pass it on, and then you can start a chat right with this person. Here's a link to a community. Really easy. You click on it and you go straight to that community. So the main purpose for communities is you have these 5 communities that you always work on. This is a quick way to always get to them. So that is the universal important to me bar that you will see everywhere in Connections. And that gives you quick access to all the things that you always work with and people you always work with. One last area, which is around the homepage. So we have a lot of customers who are using OrientMe. We have a lot of customers who are using the traditional home pages. And you know that as a user today, you basically have to go into your profile icon in the navigation on top and select, do you want to use the classic or do you want to use the new homepage, which is not that new anymore? And then that's the setting. If you want to switch back, it's a little inconvenient. But in working with all of you guys, we've heard enough of, or we've heard a lot about OrientMe being great, but there are just too many things that in OrientMe aren't there because of layout restrictions, because of the way it works, limitations, etc. So what we decided to do is give the end user an easy way to switch between the different views, because each one of those 4 views has its own merits. So we have OrientMe, which we now will call just top updates. And the significance of top updates is that the updates, the cards that appear in this view, are weighted and prioritized based on your past interactions with Connections, right? People you're following, people from those people will rank higher than people that you just don't follow. Things that you've looked at, things that you've subscribed, all of this will be taken into the algorithm, and that depends the order on what displays on top. Whereas the second there, latest updates, is strictly chronological, right? There is no bias, there's no weighting of the results. It's strictly by date and time. The newest is on top. Sometimes good, sometimes that's not what you want. So we make it easy to switch. And then discover is when you have, 15 minutes of spare time, you can click on discover, and that's where you will find things that you aren't actively following, where basically you don't have a close relationship to, but it might be interesting to you. And then lastly, the My Page is where you can actually position widgets, where you can see what you would actually, in a dashboard kind of like view, take a quick check in. So let's go back. Here we are back on that development server. And the first page that we'll see here is the top updates, right? So this is OrientMe. We'll have the top updates. We have all these cards that you can interact with. You can scroll down. Again, there's not that much going on in this particular test environment, but you see you can scroll down. There are the cards. You can interact with them. I can like a certain card here on a post. I can reply with a comment. And if it was my own status update, I can actually repost it or even delete it, right? So that's OrientMe as we know it. You can filter here. So similar to what I did earlier when I just clicked on Joe Jones's icon, I can do that manually in filter. by people, communities, or tags. So the change now is that the second level navigation now allows you to easily switch to latest updates. So here we are. There are the latest updates. Now this is strictly chronological, and I can set different filters. Maybe I want to see only at mentions. You have the embedded experience, of course, which was one of the things that the activity stream always had over OrientMe, where if you want to embed third-party notifications and have an embedded experience, this is where you can do it, right? So that's here. And then next up, we can switch to the Discover section. Again, that's where things are presented that you're maybe not actively following. And then lastly, we have the My page, where you as an end user can position what window in Connections you want to check real quick, right? So here's my files, blogs, bookmarks, etc. And if I want to customize that, I can easily go here, add applications, and position them on the grid. You also see the administration link there. I'll see that because Joe Jones 1 is an admin, so that's where you can define what widgets are actually available to the end user. All right, I think I am pretty much up on time here. So let's bring it home. And what you've seen right now was a combination of the sketches, right? The design side of things in the process of being translated into real code, right? So again, I recorded these all yesterday on an environment. This is where we are right now. And we gotten to this point by taking the designs early on and showing them to a number of customers and partners, a number of you on the phone here and other people, to gather early feedback. And this is a quick summary of the feedback that we've gotten. We used Mural. This is the screenshot in the lower left, in case you wonder what that is. That's where we use the feedback sessions to get people's comments on what's good, what's not good. And we took that in and modified the designs where it made sense to now implement those as we go. Now, at this point, I want to mention one thing. This is the slide where in the past I had a little comment that the preview is coming soon. And you're probably wondering, Rene, what's up with the preview? Wasn't that supposed to go live earlier this month? So let me comment on that. You might have seen that there are a couple of things on the server that you've shown that aren't quite coming together. And that's what we realize. It's not because we're behind schedule. That's not the point. The point is that the navigation, for example, we can't roll out all of the navigation and all the other features at the same time. Because with the navigation, we have to go through each individual components of Connections, wiki, blogs, forum, and whatnot, and tweak it, right? While at the same time doing the search. And the way we develop those, we're not at the point yet where enough of it is at one level where we can turn on the preview yet, right? So bear with us. We will do a preview. We will make it available. But in terms of the date, we'll have to get to a point where the experience on the preview is cohesive enough, where all the elements are at the right point in time where we can turn it on. So we'll get to that. All right. Like I said, this is not your traditional roadmap presentation. This was just where we are with V8. There is another session that Adam and I will do tomorrow on vNext, where we talk about community management, engagement, apps and integration, and tell you how we are determining what we will put into vNext. So join us again tomorrow. I'll pause here. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope this was useful. And Wannes, back to you.